When Winsome Sears was elected the first black female lieutenant governor of Virginia last week, some, including Sears herself, used it as an opportunity to rebuke claims of Republican racism. But a new article by FiveThirtyEight entitled "Why White Voters with Racist Views Often Still Support Black Republicans" unpacks the layers of what can be a nuanced topic. Voting for black Republicans, the author argues, often calms concerns of being seen as a racist by enabling them to say, in essence, I can't be racist, I voted for a black candidate. When it comes to Winsome Sears, the author argues, her conservative politics don't threaten the racial hierarchy. Racially prejudiced whites did not vote for Sears because they appreciate her attachment and commitment to black people. They were willing to support her because they discount it. The article also takes a deep dive into Republican candidate Ben Carson, who the author found in 2016 was very popular among whites who were most concerned about African Americans having too much influence in politics. One conclusion the author makes is that black Republicans help assure racially prejudiced whites that, unlike black Democrats, they are not in the business of carrying water for their own racial group. Black Republicans' partisan and ideological commitments allay concerns that they are for them, not us. Joining me now to discuss is former White House aide to George H.W. Bush, Joe Watkins. Joe is joining us on the phone. Mr. Watkins, thank you for being here with us tonight.
Thanks so much, Mr. Blow, for having me on.
So what do you make of the analysis by FiveThirtyEight?
I think it's fair. I mean, I looked at the polling data. It's a well-written article, and I think the polling data speaks for itself. Of course, all Republicans are not the same, and all black Republicans aren't the same. You know, I'm a black Republican. I worked for a Republican U.S. Senator in the early 80s, Dan Quayle. I worked in the White House for George H.W. Bush. I've also been on the record as a Republican who supports the voting rights, the John Lewis Voting Rights Act I support. And I'm against voter suppression. But I'm also a Republican who is, my first job out of seminary was at Talladega College in Talladega, Alabama, one of our great historically black colleges. And in the late 70s, I marched with SCLC against the Klan in Gadsden, Alabama, and various other places. So I have a sensitivity that as a black Republican that maybe some others may or may not have. But that being said, so all Republicans aren't the same. All black Republicans aren't the same. All white Republicans are not the same. All white Democrats, all black Democrats are not the same. So I think that's understood.
Yeah, but sir, I'm really interested in how you thread the needle on this, because as you said, you support the voting rights bill and you are against voter suppression, but Donald Trump is very much for voter suppression. He tried to overturn an election, and he is still going out and pushing the big lie which Republicans in states across the country are using to suppress the vote. And I watched interviews of you both on Bloomberg and on CNBC after the RNC, and it sounded like you were supporting Donald Trump. Is that the case? Are you a Trump supporter? And if so, how do you make all that make sense?
No, I support who I think is the best candidate in each instance. Whether that person's a Democrat or a Republican, I support who the best candidate is.
Did you think it was Donald Trump last time?
I think what I do is I keep my vote personal, so I don't tell who I vote for. It's not and when I'm on Bloomberg, just like.
But sir, you went on television. You literally went on television and told the world that you gave pointers for how you gave pointers for how well you thought that the president had done.
Yeah.
You gave pointers on how well you thought the president had done. You thought that he could shave off certain votes, including black votes, in those interviews. That's what you said, because he was saying the right words at the convention.
As a political analyst, as a political analyst, looking at it analytically, from a political analyst standpoint, I thought the president had the capacity to shave off some African American vote, and he did. And there were African Americans who liked his policies, and there were many, many more African Americans, like probably 90% of African Americans who didn't like his policies, but there was a percentage.
Were you among the African Americans who liked his policies?
I liked some, I didn't like others. For instance, I liked the policies.
Which ones didn't you like?
I didn't like sentencing reform. I did like sentencing reform. I didn't like his response to Charlottesville. I didn't like a lot of the tone. I liked anything that helped people of color get access to capital. I liked the sentencing reform because it levels the playing field. I didn't like anything that had a negative tone and that had a tone that spoke to anything that demeaned people of color. I didn't like any of that. And you can look on the web and see what I said. My criticism of his remarks in about Charlottesville back on CNBC. I was honest. I said I didn't agree with that. I thought it was bad. I thought it was poorly done. That he shouldn't have said that. He shouldn't have said that there were good people on both sides. I said that, and I still stand by that. And so, I stand by.
But sir, wouldn't you submit that his 4 years in office are replete with comments and also policy that negatively impacted people of color? Not just Charlottesville. It is also the family separation at the border. It is also calling Mexicans rapists. It is also saying that Haitians and African countries are S-hole countries.
I wrote an article about that. Charles Blow, hold on. I wrote an article about that saying I didn't like that. Did I disagree with that, calling S-hole nations? I've been very public in my criticism and the things that I don't agree with. And I've been public about that which I do agree. I didn't work on the Trump campaign. I wasn't called to do that. I did work on the George H.W. Bush campaign, and I was an advocate for George H.W. Bush. I worked in his White House, and I supported him, and I talked openly about that because I felt strongly enough about him to work for him. I worked for Dan Quayle when he worked in the U.S. Senate. I also told him that he ought to support the Voting Rights Act in 1981, which he did as a co-sponsor, and so. I'm very open about saying what I agree and what I don't agree with. I don't like to talk about who I did or didn't vote for, and I for the most part, I see my politics through the lens of a person of color. So you're generally going to find me to be against anything that hurts people of color, anything that demeans people of color, and you'll find me on the side of things that lower taxes and that provide more access to capital for people of color. That I like. I like those kinds of efforts. Anything that calls for sentencing reform that levels the playing field so that people of color aren't given harsh sentences and have to spend time in prison when there are other ways to help people get back on their feet after they've committed a crime. You'll find me in support of those things. And so,
I have a minute left. I want to make sure I understand how you square that with many, if not many of these issues. Most Republicans do not support those things that you're saying that you support, that even the playing field. So how do you make that all make sense and be a member of a part of the Republican Party?
Well, the same way that all Democrats wouldn't have agreed with the late Senator Byrd from Virginia, who was in the Klan. I mean, he might have been a Democrat, but he might have been a Democrat, but can you hear me?
I can absolutely hear you.
Oh, good. Yeah. So Senator Byrd may have been a Democrat, but certainly all Democrats wouldn't agree with him on his racial views, since he was he had been a member of the Klan. I'm a Republican. I'm not a candidate for any office. I'm not running for office. I don't have to agree with everything that every Republican says. I do hope that I can make things better for the country. That I can be somebody that helps people to learn to love each other and to care about each other and to do the right thing when they get elected. I think that that term limits are good because right now there's too much greed in politics for personal gain. And if politics
Mr. Watkins, unfortunately, I'm being told that I have to go. I really hate to cut this conversation off. I hope that you'll come back and join us again. But Joe Watkins, I really want to thank you for your time and coming on tonight. I appreciate the conversation.